Terrifying discovery: James Webb telescope exposes a sinister, haunted alien structure at the ED. Emily's hands shook as she flipped through the pages of her bills, staring blankly at the numbers that loomed like dark shadows across the stark white paper. "I just need one more shift," she whispered to herself, as the clock ticked past midnight. The diner was filled with the low hum of tired conversations, but all Emily could think about was Ben, her son, home alone in the silence of their cul-de-sac. She could feel the weight of her exhaustion pressing down on her shoulders, knowing there weren't enough hours in the day to make everything right. Then, Ben burst through the door, desperation etched on his face. "Mom, you won't believe what I found." He was clutching his phone, eyes wide with something between excitement and fear. A rush of worry gripped Emily's heart. "It's a building in the woods. An alien structure," he exclaimed, voice shaking. She barely had time to register his words when she glanced at the satellite images plastered across his screen. The dark silhouette loomed ominously, like a black hole swallowing the light from the surrounding trees. Emily's gut twisted with skepticism. "Ben, it's probably just a trick of the light." Days passed, and the strangeness of Edgewood deepened. Pets vanished like water evaporating on a scorching day. Flickering lights danced in the evening sky. Emily felt panic clawing at her throat, weaving her sleepless nights into a tangled mess of worry. The old neighbor, Mr. Collins, who used to greet her with a smile, now prowled the woods at odd hours, his face a mask of secrecy and unsettling detachment. "Something's wrong, Mr. Collins," she called out one evening, her voice shaking as she stepped outside. He turned to her, eyes glistening with a fear that sent chills down her spine. "You don't know the half of it." Her heart raced. That night, shadows whispered through the darkness, and she lay awake, wondering if Ben was safe in the other room. What if the creature lurking in the woods came for him? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Each day brought more unease. Ben looked at her with those wide, fearful eyes, and Emily felt the pressure building. She sensed the walls of their neighborhood pressing in. The community they had trusted was slipping away, like sand through her fingers. Whispers escalated, voices trailing off in fear when she entered a room. People were gone, just like that. One neighbor vanished, leaving behind nothing but a tattered welcome mat and unanswered questions. In a burst of desperation, Emily called for a community meeting, but the faces around her were ghostly, fear casting shadows over their features. They sat in silence, their eyes flickering to the woods beyond the dark where Ben's discovery had led her. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream ripped through the night from the direction of the alien structure, its sound sending shivers of dread through Emily's bones. "Run!" someone shouted, but where to? She felt the ground pulse beneath her, carrying secrets that made her skin crawl. As she grabbed Ben's hand, she realized the true horror may not come from the hidden structure, but from the very neighbors who shared their cul-de-sac, keeping watch, and harboring secrets darker than the encroaching shadows. Panic coursed through Emily as she and Ben bolted into the night, the air thick with terror. The scream faded into the oppressive quiet of the cul-de-sac, replaced by the sound of her own frantic breathing. They ran past the flickering streetlights, casting eerie shadows over their hurried footsteps. "Mom, what's happening?" Ben gasped, struggling to keep pace. His face had turned pale, reflecting the horror they both felt. "I don't know, just keep running." The weight of dread pressed down on her, something deep in her gut warned her that turning back would mean facing a darkness she wasn't prepared for. The neighborhood, once familiar and safe, now felt like a labyrinth of lurking dangers. As they cut through the wet grass towards the edge of the woods, fear settled like a heavy blanket over them, each rustle of a leaf sending ice down Emily's spine. They paused just at the tree lean, panting heavily. The trees stood like sentinels, towering and unforgiving. The alien structure loomed somewhere deep within, a dark blot that seemed to absorb the very light of the moon. She could almost hear it whispering, calling them forward, luring them into the depths. "Mom, what if Mr. Collins, what if he's one of them?" Ben's voice trembled, breaking her thoughts. "It's not just him, Ben. It's everyone. They're hiding something," she replied, trying to keep her own voice steady. Chilled to the bone, she turned to peer into the woods, the twisted branches nearly intertwining. They needed answers. Curiosity wrestled with fear as they took a step deeper into the trees, shadows twisting, morphing into shapes that skulked just beyond her vision. The woods seemed alive, a beating heart of malevolence pulsing in the dark. Suddenly, the hairs on Emily's arms stood on end. A sharp rustling echoed nearby, soon accompanied by an unsettling chant, faint but distinct voices mingling in a rhythmic, haunting melody. They seemed to be coming from the very direction of the alien structure. "Mom, we should go back," Ben whispered, wide-eyed. "No, we need to know. We can't allow this to keep happening," Emily insisted, her heart pounding in her chest. They pressed on, every step forward drawing them into a spiraling void. The chant became louder, more insistent, and the air thickened with a lingering scent, sharp and metallic. They stumbled upon a small clearing, where shadows danced wildly, and in the center, flickering in the pale moonlight, was the structure itself, a towering, grotesque monument that seemed to pulse with life. As they stepped closer, Emily felt her breaths quicken, her heart racing with an inexplicable compulsion. She wanted to touch the surface, to understand its secrets, when suddenly, a shape appeared at the edge of the clearing. It was Mr. Collins. His eyes glinted in the darkness, reflecting an unsettling mixture of fear and anger. "You shouldn't be here," he rasped, stepping forward. The shadows around him flickered and twisted as if alive. "Why? What do you know?" Emily demanded, voice steely despite the fear bubbling inside her, but before he could respond, a sudden, gut-wrenching roar erupted from beyond the dark structure, resonating in the air like a warning bell. The ground shook, and the trees trembled, branches creaking as though they were alive. "Get back!" Mr. Collins screamed, but it was already too late. Something emerged from the shadows, a mass of darkness swirling with intent, and the haunting chant reached a chilling crescendo. A sense of absolute dread surged through Emily. "Run!" she yelled, grabbing Ben and sprinting back into the woods, the echoes of terror chasing them into the night. What had they awakened? What awaited them in the darkness? As they ran, the creature's roar followed, gaining ground, a relentless predator ready to consume them both. "Mom!" Ben shouted, his voice shaking. "Keep going. We will find a way out," Emily urged, desperation coloring her words. But in her heart, she felt the cold grip of reality. The community they had trusted was unraveling, and every step they took pulled them deeper into a nightmare they weren't prepared to face. What had they unleashed? The answer lay hidden in the shadows, waiting for the moment to reveal itself. Branches clawed at Emily and Ben as they plunged deeper into the woods, their breath coming in ragged gasps. Panic tightened around her chest, squeezing the air from her lungs. The roar echoed behind them, a monstrous exclamation of fury that made her heart race even faster. It was hungry. It wanted them. "Mom! It's getting closer!" Ben cried, darting a fearful glance over his shoulder. His eyes were wide with terror, glimmering in the low light. "Keep going. Don't look back!" she shouted, fighting to drown out the panic rising within her. They burst through a thicket of brambles, emerging into another clearing, but the space felt wrong. The trees curved unnaturally, as though they were leaning in, listening. Emily felt a prickly sensation crawl across her skin. This place was alive, aware, and it didn't take kindly to visitors. The chilling chant drifted through the air again, weaving around them like a web. It was closer now, seeping into the silence between her frantic thoughts. Ben stumbled, but she caught him, the weight of the world pushing on their small forms. We have to find a way out. A flash of light erupted ahead, cutting through the gloom. Emily squinted against the brightness. Was it salvation? Or another trick? With little time to consider, she grabbed Ben's wrist, pulling him towards the glow. As they approached, the light flickered and morphed, revealing symbols etched into the ground, an unsettling array of shapes that twisted and turned into grotesque depictions of what looked like people, faces frozen in agony, hands raised in desperate pleas. What is this? Ben breathed, eyes wide, horror etching his small features. I don't know, she whispered, fear clawing at her throat, but it felt wrong, not just a warning, but an invitation. The roar erupted again. They didn't have time to waste. Slipping past the horrific inscriptions, Emily felt the ground tremble beneath them, the earth vibrating in rhythm with the distant chanting. The creature was gaining on them. Suddenly, a figure stepped out from the shadows. It was Mr. Collins, but his visage seemed warped, his mouth twisted into a grin that spoke of dark secrets. He looked more monstrous than human, as if he was a vessel for something other than himself. Follow me. You have to understand. He barked, urgency lacing his words, but Emily could only grasp his warning with half a mind. Mom, he's different. Ben stammered, pulling against her grip. No. We can't trust him. Emily shouted, pulling Ben away just as the chanting rose to a deafening crescendo. The dark structure loomed behind Collins, pulsating, the shadows swirling with an otherworldly energy. Emily's blood ran cold as she realized the truth. Mr. Collins wasn't just a man. He was part of it. Get away from there. She yelled, fear mixing with fury. But there was no time. She felt something brush against her leg, and, before she could react, the ground opened up beneath them. Mom! Ben screamed, reaching out, but the darkness tightened its grip. Emily barely managed to pull him back just in time, but they were teetering at the edge now, their feet hanging precariously over a chasm that glowed with an unnatural light. The chanting peaked, echoing with an unearthly harmony, and the shadows began to form shapes, horrible, twisted figures rising from below, writhing in agony. They were trapped, ensnared by something ancient and unfathomable that threatened to swallow them whole. We have to jump. She shouted, feeling the tremors intensify around them. It was the only way to escape, but the thought of facing the unknown clawed at her insides. Where? Ben shouted, panic in his voice. Anywhere but here. Emily cried, her thoughts racing, but was there anywhere else to go? Just as she was about to make the leap, a blinding flash erupted, and she felt a force tugging at her into the light, into the unknown. As they tumbled into the depths, the figures below reached for them with skeletal hands and hollow eyes, and she realized she was not just running from the darkness, they were being pulled into it. What awaited them in that abyss? Was it salvation or damnation waiting to embrace them? The shadows wrapped tighter around her, and everything went dark. The darkness enveloped them like a heavy blanket, pressing down on their chests. Emily felt herself slipping, the cold threatening to crawl inside her skin. She squeezed Ben's hand tighter, grounding herself in the warmth of his small fingers. Then, a sensation, a jolt of air rushing past. They tumbled forward, landing not on an unforgiving floor, but on a surface that felt almost alive. The ground pulsed beneath them, vibrating with an uncomfortable energy that sent ripples through the air. Emily raised her head, blinking against the residual brightness. The abyss had transformed into an eerie cavern, illuminated by an otherworldly glow that emanated from the walls. Strange symbols covered the surface, glowing faintly like embers. She recognized some of the shapes. The same grotesque figures she had seen before, contorted in pain and terror. Ben's breathing was rapid, panic underlying every inhale. Mom, where are we? His voice trembled, a haunting echo in the cavern. I don't know, she admitted, dread gnawing at her gut. The chanting had ceased, replaced by an unsettling silence that felt pregnant with malevolence. Turn back. Turn back. A whispering voice hissed from the shadows. It slithered through the air, chilling her to the bone. Emily scanned the darkness, heart racing. "Who's there?" she called out, her voice seeming small and frail. No answer came, only the sound of her own heartbeat drumming in her ears. Suddenly, a flicker. From the periphery, shapes began to manifest. Figures emerged from the shadows, faces twisted in fear, their mouths open in silent screams. She recognized them: hikers, lost souls that had vanished in these woods. Their eyes were wide, pleading. They reached out as if to warn her. "Mom! We have to go." Ben pulled her back, his eyes darting around as if the shadows themselves threatened to swallow them whole. But where could they go? The cavern closed in, walls seeming to narrow, the air thickening. Emily's heart raced. She stumbled backward, leading Ben away from the figures, but they mirrored their movements seamlessly, trailing closer, their eyes never leaving her. "Emily!" A familiar voice pierced through the silent screams, reverberating off the walls. It was Mr. Collins, appearing once more, but this time, his face was devoid of that manic grin. His eyes, once lost to madness, held an unsettling clarity. "You need to listen." "What do you want?" she cried, both furious and frightened. "What did you bring us into?" "They're trapped. Just like I am." He gestured frantically to the figures, pleading as they contorted in pain, fading in and out, caught in a loop of despair. "The darkness feeds on fear. It thrives. You must face it." "Face what?" Ben's voice wavered, confusion twisting through his innocent features. "The creature that stalks you," Collins said, voice strained, urgency creeping back in. "It's all around you. But the key to escape lies in your strength, your will. You need to break its hold." A shriek resonated, shattering her focus. The shadows lurched. A hulking mass of darkness emerged, a monstrous silhouette spiraled in hungry anticipation, arms twisted and malformed. Teeth, glistening in the ethereal light, dripped with dread. Emily tightened her grip on Ben, terror clawing at her throat. "Mom!" he cried, eyes brimming with fear. "It's here!" she gasped, shoving Ben behind her. The words of Collins lingered as reality closed in, crushing her spirit. Facing this horror was all they had left. "Let us run!" she shouted, but the cavernous open space began to widen and twist, warping like a funhouse mirror. The shadows shifted around them, and suddenly, Emily's fear morphed into something fierce. They couldn't just flee. They had to confront the darkness. "Hold my hand, Ben!" she yelled, determination igniting in her chest. As they braced themselves against the advance of the creature, another voice broke through the cavern, one she had not heard in years, one she had longed for. It called to her from beyond the shadows, a soft, familiar whisper that swelled with promise and fear. "Emily." "Mom?" Ben's voice trembled, but she didn't look back. What awaited her in that velvety darkness? Was it her mother or something far more sinister, ready to drag both her and Ben into oblivion? As the shadows surged closer, Emily steeled herself. They had to face whatever lay in the gloom, there was no turning back now. Her throat tightened. Just a little more courage. Yet as darkness enveloped them, one last thought pierced her mind. What if the very act of confronting the creature was what it desired most? What would that mean for them both? Emily's heart hammered in her chest as the cavern closed in, the air growing thicker with every breath she took. The shadows twisted, swirling menacingly, as if they could sense her fear. She could feel Ben's tremors behind her, his small body pressed against her back like a life buoy. "Mom!" he whimpered. She couldn't look back. She was afraid of what she would see. "Stay close," she shouted, trying to ignore the tightening coil of dread in her stomach. The voice, her mother's voice, echoed hauntingly in her mind. It lay wrapped in a thick fog of nostalgia and guilt, stirring memories buried deep. What did it want? To bring her comfort? Or to drag her into the abyss along with it? "Emily, you must choose," the whisper floated around her, wrapping around her in dark tendrils. "Choose what?" she shouted, her voice lost in the cavern's echo. What choice was there but to fight? But how could she fight what she couldn't see, what was everywhere and nowhere all at once? Ben squeezed her hand tighter, his knuckles white. "Mom, I don't like it here. I want to go home," he cried, tears spilling down his cheeks. "We will," she reassured him, her voice breaking even as she pulled herself together. "We will find a way out." The shadows shifted at the edge of her vision, their shapes morphing and elongating into figures that danced and writhed. She couldn't discern where they began or where they ended, but their faces were clear, anguished, desperate, a chorus of mournful wails that cut through her resolve. "Help us," they begged silently, hands reaching out grasping for something, anything. The way they twisted through the darkness felt so familiar, like a chilling reflection of Emily's own fear. "I want to let you take my son," she screamed, her voice ringing with defiance. It echoed off the walls and a rush surged through her veins, fighting against the icy grip of despair, but the creature, the one consuming the shadows, it stirred, fueled by her fear. The heavy mass lurked just beyond her line of sight, inhaling her dread, growing with each pulse of her racing heart. "Focus, Em," she breathed to herself, her voice barely louder than a whisper. She had to remember what Collins said. Strength. Will. Courage. She took a step forward, forcing her resolve against the all-consuming darkness. "I am not afraid of you. We will break your hold." Small tremors ran through her as the words left her mouth, but she held them firm, pushing against the suffocating weight surrounding them. A thunderous roar filled the cavern, shaking the very core of the ground beneath her. The shadows writhed and screamed in fury, but she pressed on, pulling Ben closer. "Say it, Ben," she urged. "Say you're not afraid." Afraid of what?" Ben stuttered, bewildered and sobbing. "Of the darkness. Of what it wants." "Mom," his voice quaked, a mix of fear and confusion. But after a tense pause, he yelled, "I am not afraid." The instant he said it, light surged from their clasped hands, a bright beacon that pierced the shadows. But the creature wasn't done. It surged forward, a wave of pure malice and hunger, swallowing light whole. The air thickened, turning to a suffocating blanket as the chilling darkness beckoned. The ground pulsed again beneath them, a sickening reminder of its palpable life. Emily's heart raced as the figures shrieked, a cacophony of despair crashing against her ears. "Let go," the rasping voice hissed, sliding into her mind, slipping into cracks of doubt. "You can't save them." "No," she barked, clenching Ben's hand tighter as they pushed forward, defiance roaring inside her. Before her, a gaping maw of shadowed teeth opened wide, and she couldn't help but think that it was waiting hungry for their surrender. In that moment, something twisted deep inside her. "Ben!" she shouted, "we have to fight together." As they leaned into each other, arm in arm, ready to face whatever lay ahead, the darkness surged, threatening to drown them in terror. But was the true horror what awaited them, or was it their own willingness to embrace the light after being swallowed by despair? As the cavern trembled and the abyss loomed closer, Emily braced herself for the ultimate confrontation. But what if the darkness was not just an enemy, but a reflection of their deepest fears? And if so, could they truly conquer what they could not face? The shadows loomed closer, heavy with dread, and she realized, the reality of the cavern had only just begun to unravel. What they would encounter next would redefine everything they thought they knew about fear. The darkness unleashed a hurricane of chaos, swirling around them like a tempest. Emily clung to Ben, the heat of his small body a fragile lifeline against the cold. She was acutely aware of every shadow that hunted them, each creak of stone above, and each heartbeat that thundered in her ears. "Mom," Ben's voice trembled, a whisper carved from terror. "What is that?" She couldn't answer him. Ahead, shapes materialized, roiling specters formed from the cave's gloom. They flitted at the fringes of her vision, flaring like fireflies only to scatter into nothingness. The sound of their wails wrapped around her like barbed wire, digging into her resolve, sending chills through her spine. "Everyone who chose is waiting for you," they seemed to say. Their cries were mixed with suffocating despair. But the moment she turned towards them, they shimmered and faded like a mirage. Emily felt her breath quicken. "Mom!" Ben clutched her waist. "Don't let them take me. Stay with me, Ben." Panic threaded through her voice, but she steeled herself. This was more than a physical threat, it was a fracture deep in her soul, a dark reflection pulling at her, begging for surrender. It was right there. The creature, veiled in shadows and malice. Its presence crawled over her skin, thick and binding. When she stared into the darkness, it stared back an abyss gazing into the depths of her fear. She choked back the urge to cry, hating the pitiful vulnerability gnawing at her resolve. Suddenly, the ground heaved violently, knocking her forward. Emily barely caught herself, her heart plunging into her stomach. In that disorienting moment, echoes of her mother's voice cascaded through the stillness, speaking of choices forged from pain. "You can save him. But only if you let go." "Let go?" "No!" she yelled, her voice slicing through the encroaching night. The words hung in the air for a moment, filling her with a flicker of hope. She gripped Ben's hand tighter, yanking him close. "We fight back." In response, the cavern shuddered. The darkness seemed alive, consuming the light that emanated from them like a ravenous beast. The shadows formed a grotesque visage, a face twisted with layers of grief and malice. It leaned closer, breath hot and fetid, seducing her with promises of peace if she would only submit. "You don't know what you're fighting," it hissed, its voice a rasp that clawed at her mind. "You are only prolonging your suffering." Emily felt it invade her senses. It was true. She had spent years avoiding the pain her mother left behind, burying memories under layers of guilt. An image flashed before her, her mother's face, smiling yet hollow, haunted by regrets. "Let go of the past, Emily, no." She howled, defiance igniting anew. "I want to live in your shadow." The cavern shook violently, shaking loose debris from the ceiling. A dust cloud erupted, filling their lungs. Emily coughed but pressed on, dragging Ben through the murky haze until they stumbled into an open space at the heart of the cave. In that moment, the light returned, splashing from her heart back into the black. It rebounded off walls, illuminating the grotesque forms that had tormented her. Now, they withered, flailing against the waning light of hope. "Keep talking," she urged Ben, who looked bewildered but caught fire with her urgency. "Say anything, Ben." I love ice cream," he shouted, his voice drowning in adrenaline. "And playing outside. I want to get back to Daddy. I love you, Mom." His words rang like a bell, causing fissures to crack in the looming shadow. The more they spoke, the clearer their world became, breaking the shroud of uncertainty, but before they could breathe a sigh of relief, a voice echoed deep within the abyss. "You might escape this moment, little girl, but you can't escape your past." A new dread twisted in her belly. Was this darkness really sentient, or merely a projection of her own history, shaping her fears? Or perhaps something even worse awaited her, an unfathomable truth deep within, hidden beneath layers of anguish. The maw of shadows yawned wide once more, bearing down. With insatiable hunger, and as they held on to that flickering light, Emily knew, the real battle was just beginning. Would she and Ben find a way to navigate through the darkest reflections of their souls, or was the cavern destined to consume them whole? The shadows recoiled, howling in displeasure as the light from Emily's heart surged into the darkened expanse. She felt a flicker of courage, but it was fleeting. Doubt plagued her like a swarm of hornets. What if we can't keep this up? She muttered, eyes darting around for any sign of safety or escape. Mom? What do we do now? Ben's small voice was tremulous, a reminder of the innocence they were fighting to protect. Just keep talking. She shouted, rallying her thoughts. Memories surfaced like air bubbles in murky water: his first steps, giggles over ice cream messes, their late-night movie marathons. Remember the time we made that giant fort in the living room? Ben's eyes lit up, the shadows fizzling slightly in response. Yeah. And we got to eat popcorn and watch dinosaur movies. Exactly. We had a blast. Emily grinned, her pulse hammering in rhythm to the urgency of the moment. The cavern trembled again, and the specters lurking around the edges of the light shrieked as if their very essence was being burned away. But the relief was short-lived. The ground beneath them cracked, splitting open like a mouth ready to swallow them whole. Look out! She yelled, pulling Ben close. She felt the earth pull at their feet, dragging them toward a pool of darkness deeper than the night sky. Mom! He screamed, wide eyes glistening with terror. Hold on to me! She barked, tightening her grip. The shadows rolled and writhed, encircling them in a frenzy of wrathful whispers, mocking their struggles. You're nothing! They cried. Despair had its chance. It's too late for hope. No! She screamed back, feeling the warmth of her love for Ben push against the cold around them. You don't own us. But the shadows, now a swirling mass of twisted forms, loomed over them. The grotesque features merged into a singular, monstrous face, mournful and terrifying, eyes hollow with eternity. Let me show you what you truly fear. In a blinding instant, the world around them shifted, morphing from rock and shadow into a haunting tapestry of her past. She stood in an empty house, the scent of old wood and lost dreams clinging to her like a shroud. She saw herself, years younger, cradling a sickly Ben in her arms, desperation tight in her chest. Ghostly versions of family members floated past, faces blurred with pain, expressions of disappointment filling the air. Mommy, little Ben whispered from the shadows, surrounded by the ghosts of what could have been. Why can't you stay with me? She could feel the darkness tightening, squeezing the breath from her lungs. No! I can't let you in! She shouted, struggling against the memories clawing at her sanity. But the dark could be persuasive. You're afraid of him following you into your mistakes. You carry this burden like a stone, Emily. Relinquish it, and you'll find peace. The seductive darkness wrapped around her like a warm blanket, and doubt seeped in. Could she truly protect her son? Mom! Fight it! Ben's voice broke through the chaos, a fragile lifeline tugging at her heart. Please! He needed her. How could she give in now that he was fighting right beside her? The cavern shuddered once more, and with a fierce determination igniting her soul, she shouted, I won't succumb. I choose light. I choose love. And for a brief moment, the darkness faltered, crumbling around them like shattered glass. Emily seized the moment. Let us go, Ben. As they fought their way through the remnants of despair, a new sound sliced through the air, a reverberating peal, like metal scraping against stone. Startled, they spun around. What emerged from the shadows was something more terrifying than anything they had faced before, a monstrous figure, hatched from their deepest fears, its eyes blazing with the intensity of 1,000 regrets. The cavern trembled, walls closing in around them. Time to finally confront your past, it rumbled. As Ben pulled closer to her side, Emily struggled to catch her breath, grounding herself in the warmth of her son. But the question clung to her like the darkness around them: could she face the truth that had haunted her for so long, or would the void consume them both? In that split second, the decision loomed closer than ever before. The air grew thick with tension as the figure took shape, its shifting body a mass of shadows coalescing into something almost human-like, yet grotesque in the way it distorted. Eyes like coals burned intensely, fixated on Emily and Ben. The monstrous gaze felt like ice needles, prickling her skin and freezing her resolve. "Face what you've avoided," it boomed, its voice echoing like thunder in the cavern. The walls quivered as vibrations cascaded through the air, shaking her confidence. Emily's heart raced. Sweat trickled down her back, mingling with the chill creeping through her limbs. "Mom, I'm scared." Ben's voice quaked at her side. She felt his small frame tremble against her, a stark reminder that her strength had to prevail if they were to survive this. "I know, sweetie. Just hold on to me," she whispered, squeezing his hand tighter, her pulse matching the rhythm of dread enveloping them. The beast took a step forward, its presence consuming the light they had fought so hard to preserve. "You can't hide from the fragments of your soul, Emily. They all want to be acknowledged." Then, in a flicker, images burst forth from the darkness, a bonfire of her past mistakes, illuminating regrets she had buried deep. She saw faces she dared not remember, the look of her mother's disappointment when she chose to be with someone who only brought heartache, her friend's betrayal over a petty fight that splintered their bond. But the images that paralyzed her were of Ben, the haunting terror of failing him gnawing at her heart. "Please stop," she gasped, feeling her limbs weaken under the weight of it all. The spectre's laughter echoed, cruel and mocking, as it absorbed her fear like a sponge. "Every choice, every moment of uncertainty they've shaped you. You can't escape them." It sneered, its mouth stretching into a grotesque smile. The shadows wriggled at its feet, hungry for more despair. "Ben! Remember what we said about facing fears?" Emily shouted, fighting against the wave of horror crashing over her. "We can't let it win. What do we do?" "Maybe we have to say it out loud," he stammered, eyes wide with understanding. "What we're scared of." Emily steadied herself, heart pounding in her chest like a drum of war. She had to be brave for him. "I'm scared of losing you," she admitted, the raw truth bursting forth. Her voice trembled, echoing back at her like a sacrilege. "I'm scared that I'm not enough to keep us safe." "Me too," Ben whispered, glancing from the monster to her, his voice resolute despite the fear. "I'm scared that we will always be trapped here. But I will fight." The shadows shrieked, recoiling at their admission. The cavernous walls crackled as the light from Emily's heart flared back to life, flickering bravely against the encroaching darkness. "Together," Emily declared, their united fear intertwining and transforming into a shield. The monstrous figure writhed, shrieking in rage at the blinding light. It stumbled back, shadows splattering like ink against a canvas. But even as they fought, Emily sensed the truth deepening around them. What was the monster truly? A manifestation of her past or a prophetic glimpse of a future woven with failures? In that fraught moment, the air thickened once more, and a new figure swept into view, a specter blending hope and despair, a new layer of horror added to the unfolding nightmare. "Now, you must decide," it whispered, voice slithering through the dark, "what is worth fighting for?" Emily's breath hitched, her mind racing. What did it all mean? They were caught in a web of past and present, battling their deepest fears. Would they emerge stronger, or was defeat waiting just around the corner, licking its lips in anticipation? The question slipped into her mind: would they ever escape, or were the walls of the cavern closing in fast? The new figure loomed larger than the first, its form patchy and indistinct. Shadows writhed around it as if the darkness itself were sentient, eager to breach the flickering light Emily and Ben had conjured. Emily's breath quickened, fear threading through her veins like ice. What else could emerge from this nightmare? Decide what is worth fighting for. She repeated, disbelief wrapping itself around the words. What kind of decision is that? Life is filled with choices, the spectre hissed, its voice a haunting melody laced with malice. choices that determine your fate. But this choice, it cuts deeper than life and death. Each word slithered into Emily's mind, coiling around her doubts. What do you want from us? Ben shouted, his voice piercing through the fog of fear. We just want to get out of here. We want to go home. The creature laughed, a sound that sent chills racing down Emily's back. Home? What do you know of home? Is it the place you return to, or the people that line the way? Tell me, boy, what is it truly worth to you? Ben's face paled. I want to be safe. I want my mom. Emily's heart ached with a fierce intensity. Holding Ben's hand, she whispered fiercely, we're not backing down. We're fighting for each other. We'll always fight for each other. The cavern pulsed as their words echoed through the shadows, a heartbeat that reverberated from the walls. The new spectre recoiled, the malevolent glee slipping from its features, replaced by a menacing curiosity. A bond, what a strange weapon you wield, it rasped, its eyes narrowing with intrigue, but a pulse of fear shot through Emily. No, it's not just a bond. It's love. She shouted. The love that makes us brave enough to face this. Love gives us strength. The air shifted, thickening with tension, and walls of darkness began to swirl violently. The first monster howled, its anger mixing with confusion, but Emily pressed on. Hear me. I am not just my past mistakes. We are more than our fears. As though defiant against the flare of courage, the specters melded together, twisting into a single monstrous entity that loomed over them. Faces emerged from the blackness, the twisted echoes of their regrets and failures, surrounding Emily and Ben. You think love can save you? It hissed, weaving a web of anguish through the cavern. Emily felt the icy grip of despair claw at her. It can, she whispered, shaking, but refusing to yield. We will fight for the chance to forgive, to heal. That's worth everything. In response, the creature let out a roar, a sound that rattled the very core of the cavern and echoed into the depths, a visceral reaction to the weight of her declaration. It felt like the earth itself was trembling, threatening to swallow them whole. Emily grasped Ben tighter, security fulfilling her as their hearts pulsed in sync. Remember what we said, Ben? What we have is worth fighting for. With a determined cry, they thrust their combined light towards the coalescing darkness, a beacon fueled by love and hope. But just as the darkness began to fracture, a blinding flash surged from the depths, filling the cavern with a harrowing radiance that overwhelmed them. Suddenly, they were engulfed in heat, chilling the air before it lazily fostered ice-like tendrils, wrapping around their bodies. Emily felt herself unraveling, fantasies of safety slipping through her fingers like grains of sand. Then came a whisper, soft yet sinister, you may fight, but your struggles will be meaningless here. As blinding light enveloped them, a lurking dread settled deep within Emily's gut. She could feel the walls shifting in response to their defiance. What awaited them next? Would they embrace the light, or was the darkness ready to unleash its final blow? The question hung in the air, heavy with dread, as the creatures leered in triumph, anticipating their next move. The blinding light enveloped Emily and Ben, disorienting them, pulling them apart as the shadows raged like a whirlwind behind. Emily felt a jolt of panic. Ben! She shouted, grasping for her son. She was losing him. The light shimmered, swirling around her like a protective cocoon. Stay with me. We can't let it win. She fought against the temptation to yield to the darkness, the voice echoing promises of despair. But then, that flickering warmth inside ignited again, the potent bond of love binding her to Ben, anchoring her to hope. The creature hesitated, a gurgling sound rumbling in its throat. What is this? This bond, it weakens us? Mom, I'm here. Ben's voice broke through, strong despite the shadows clawing at his spirit. She caught a glimpse of him, his face paralyzed with terror but alive with resilience. It flickered, getting swallowed up by the chaos swirling around. She clutched onto the warmth of their connection, feeling that it was their greatest weapon. Hold on. She yelled. face it together. The shadows recoiled, ripping through the light as they grew closer, their forms clawing for dominance, seeking to drown out their flicker of hope. Love won't save you. The creature roared, twisting and reshaping into grotesque expressions of despair, but Emily felt the glow in her heart throb, resonating with a force that surged against the dark louder than the sinister whispers that crept in her mind. It can. She shouted defiantly. Love is everything. With each word, the light expanded, illuminating the cavern walls, pushing back the despair clawing at their feet. I choose love. I choose us. The shadows drew back as if in pain, shrieking and writhing. The air crackled with energy, and her heart roared with determination. Together, Ben. Come on. Ben joined in, voice threaded with innocence and strength. I want to go home. I love my mom. As the words flowed from their lips, the shadows shrieked. The figure expanded, transforming into a torrent of writhing faces, anguished expressions of regret and horror she once feared, but now, they trembled at the force of Emily and Ben's love. The cavernous walls rumbled, echoing with their power, and they combined their energies, lifting their clasped hands toward the creature. It sneered, a crack forming along its hideous face. You cannot escape. You will always be. But in that moment, realization hit Emily like a punch to the gut. You're right. We won't escape without confronting you. But we will. She held Ben's hand tighter, determination flooding her heart. We will confront our regrets, our failures, and our fears instead of running from them. They pushed forward through the blinding light, the chorus of their united voices piercing the dark. We will face what we've hidden. The cavern shuddered violently, the very foundation of their darkest fears crumbling as the shadows twisted and screeched, recoiling as the light surged and banished the remnants of despair. No. It can't be. It slashed out at them, the very essence of darkness writhing and collapsing in upon itself. The chamber erupted in blinding brilliance, and Emily felt it all around her, the warmth of their connection, their courage, each heartbeat resonating louder than the creature's agony. It was breaking. With a final surge of will, she closed her eyes, pushing forward into the light. In an explosion of warmth and clarity, the shadows burst apart like shattered glass, revealing a radiant light that engulfed them completely. And suddenly, they stood in their garden, the sun shining bright. Emily blinked, disbelief flooding her senses. They were back. The familiar colors of Edgewood radiated around them, and Ben was safe by her side. Mom! He spun around, confused and bewildered, but something glimmered in his eyes, their bond forged stronger than ever. We did it? I think we did, Emily breathed, tears blurring her vision as she cupped his face in her hands. We faced it together. A feeling of warmth enveloped them, pushing away the scars of darkness they had battled. The air felt lighter, filled with promise and hope, a fresh start awaiting them. Overhead, a flock of birds flew past, their joyful chirping echoing around her. Mom? Ben's voice drew her back, filled with innocence and wonder. Can we go for ice cream? A soft laugh escaped her lips, the weight finally lifting from her heart. Absolutely, kiddo. Let us go home. As they walked hand in hand, the neighborhood stood calm and bright, the past behind them, blooming with the beauty of tomorrow. Emily glanced over her shoulder one last time, whispering a quiet farewell to the darkness that had once loomed over them. I won't forget you, but I won't be afraid anymore. And as they moved forward, a new chapter awaited them, open and filled with endless possibilities. Now that you've journeyed with us through this intense tale, don't let the adventure end here. You need to subscribe now for more exclusive stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Smash that like button to show your love and help us feed the algorithm. Flood the comments below with your thoughts and theories about Emily and Ben's epic battle against the darkness. You never know what insights others might have. And don't wait even one more second to share this story with at least 5 friends who need to see this thrilling conclusion. Your support means the world. We're in this together.